Hi pals, it's me, Artie, they them pronouns only. Different background, because nobody's here. And sitting on the floor is somehow more comfortable than sitting on my bed. This week's video, I'm talking about auditory processing disorders, but specifically mine. I got officially diagnosed with an auditory processing disorder. I went through the whole process privately. It was not cheap. However, it's not really a thing that seems to be tested for particularly regularly in general. For the most part, it's a thing that you have your whole life. And yeah, I remember having hearing tests and stuff in school, but this never really came up. And trying to access the assessments and stuff as an adult in the UK is also really difficult. There's not many places that do these assessments in the UK. The main one is in London, which is who I went to, and then I believe there's one in Southampton. I don't know where any others were. For the most part, anything else was only for children. I don't know why they can't also assess adults, but fine. But basically, an auditory processing disorder, like I shorthand it to APD when I'm typing, refers to the clinical presentation of listening difficulties in children and adults who have normal pure tone thresholds but abnormal scores in complex psychoacoustic tests. People with auditory processing disorders find it difficult to discriminate sounds and to listen and understand when there is even like a minimal amount of noise or when the sound is distorted. They will have speech discrimination difficulties because speech is a fast changing sound that requires discrimination of individual sounds, sequencing of sounds, good use of spatial cues to separate different speakers, as well as cognitive, so attention, memory, etc., and other processing. They may have difficulties remembering what they hear or read, and attending to speech, yeah, literally me right now, and difficulties attending to speech over a long time. Individuals with auditory processing disorders require more time to process what they hear and also more time to process what they read, in that when we read, we use the verbal rehearsal system. My difficulties that I've had that I think or have been confirmed are related to having an auditory processing disorder are I often need people to face me, not mumble. I realise I lip read quite a lot, especially when the COVID lockdowns and stuff happened and like most people were wearing masks. I found it really difficult to understand what people were saying to me because I rely quite a lot on lip reading people. I often can't understand what people are saying when I'm in like busy, crowded, loud places, so generally out in public, clubs, cafes. I think I mentioned in one of my autism related videos that I wrote down, I think in like year 7 or something, that I liked a certain class because it was quiet or something, like because the class was quiet I could participate better, or I think I said the reverse possibly, that I couldn't concentrate because it was too loud. So like yeah, even trying to do other things when things are quite loud is really difficult. Delayed processing of speech and sound, and it's worse when there's overlapping noise, so like other people around speaking or like transport noises or music. I've started to not immediately say what and just kind of wait until it clicks in my brain. I think a lot of people relate to this, that if you don't quite hear what someone says first time around, you say what, and then you answer the question before they repeat themselves. So yeah, a lot of the times I know that I'll probably get it in a minute. I can't think or speak when I can hear either myself echoing or other noises, particularly in like Zoom calls or like video calls. That's why I usually tend to ask people to all wear their like headphones when they're on a call, or if they aren't wearing any, to mute themselves, because a lot of the times the speaker voice can echo, or like there's just sometimes people are just in like a louder location, and that can be really distracting. I can't process all of the noises or like filter some of them out. I also really struggle in phone calls, kind of like as I've said, I can't lip read in a phone call. A lot of the times the quality of a phone call is pretty shit. A lot of people are like call from locations where like, I don't know, the sound is just bad, like either lots of people or like, again, a weird echo or distortion. I get this quite a lot when calling the GP, and I'm just sort of like, I can't hear you. You're on loudspeaker on the loudest volume. I can't understand what you're saying, because there's just too much like other noise. And as well, like if anyone's had to speak to people who are sat in a call center and you can hear everyone else in the call center, I can't talk to you because I can't, there's too many other people around you speaking. And then as well, I do struggle with people speaking too fast or like really strong accents, especially if I'm not used to the accents. More so I have issues with just people's speed, or like a lot of people like, yeah, mumble or slur words at times. And I'm sure I do exactly this, like editing my own videos, I'm like, what did I just fucking say? Like I just slurred the fuck out of that word. What did I just say? So yeah, like I say in a lot of my videos, when it comes to like having conversations with friends or family, it's fine really, because I can be like, I don't know, can you say that, like look at me, I have no idea what you said. But like in other settings, it can be really difficult, particularly more professional settings, educational settings, because a lot of places are not very interested in actually providing reasonable adjustments, even though it's often as simple as wear some fucking headphones or stay on mute. And I usually find myself having to continually ask for those things. And especially not having had a diagnosis until now, I didn't have a reason to request things like that. I often sort of put it to my dyslexia, my autism, my ADHD, but really there's a specific thing that, you know, is common among ADHDers, autistics, like other learning difficulties and disabilities, but also it's a thing that you can have separate from that, or like you can be entirely neurotypical and have an auditory processing disorder. So I felt like it was going to be a useful process to get diagnosed, because it's one of the one thing that I find is really debilitating, to be honest, and one thing that people just don't really get, because it's not really a disability that people understand, and it does kind of sometimes I think as well, when it comes to either like conditions that are becoming a bit more recognised and diagnosed more often, like ADHD and autism, it's like, oh god, look at all these wannabes. But then it's the same kind of vibe when it's something that people just don't really know anything about. They're like, oh, you have to be really special, or why are you, what's wrong with you that you have to be so special to get this thing that I've never even heard of. But yeah, I think as well, when it comes to sort of the legalities of things, it's helpful to have a diagnosis to be like, these are my rights, so if you don't do like super simple basic shit just to make this a little bit easier for me, I'm suing. I'm kidding, I don't have a lawyer. So how it went was, you have to go and get an updated like general hearing test first. Why was that so hard for me to access? Obviously I've not had hearing tests for quite a long time. I've had no like need to, because I've not lost any hearing. According to my initial just basic hearing test, that I have really good hearing and can actually hear higher pitches better than most people my age. Gonna say that's the autism. I can hear electricity. I was struggling to find somewhere that would just do a fucking hearing test. I first went to a place where my granddad gets his hearing aids and stuff. They didn't do private hearing tests unless I'm going to buy hearing aids from them. I was like, that makes no sense. For one, technically, I don't even know if I need hearing aids because I've not had a hearing test in so long. Two, why are you as a non-profit turning down literally such a simple basic hearing test that I'm willing to pay for. I ended up getting one for free, but yeah, that just made no sense to me. Like, I just wanted to go somewhere that I knew other people used. I then also tried Boots, but like the website would not let me book. If you're under a certain age, they make you do like a website hearing test, and like it just wouldn't let me book an appointment. So I contacted them being like, I don't really understand what's going on here. I just want to book a hearing test because I am looking at getting assessed for an auditory processing disorder, but the website won't let me do any of these things. And their response eventually was like, oh, you need to make an account. You need to sign up for an account. I was like, well, it didn't say that anywhere. It just kept telling me I had to do the online hearing test and then that I was borderline, and the hearing test couldn't give me anything useful, but it wouldn't then let me book, and it didn't tell me I needed to sign up for an account to be able to book. So I was complaining to them being like, that makes no sense, and like that needs to be fixed on your website because that's stupid. Like, that makes no sense. I ended up going with I believe they're an independent hearing and optician place. And like, it was fine, but the main issue I have with everywhere is that because I do have quite sensitive hearing, I can hear everything. I can hear all this noise. And I think that's part of the auditory processing disorder too, is that I can't filter out that noise. So it was hard to do that assessment because I could hear people walking around, people washing their hands, like flushing the toilets, chatting, because we were just in like a back office room, obviously where they do these tests, because like they had all the equipment and shit there, but it obviously wasn't like soundproofed or anything. And for me, one question I couldn't really answer is, do I have tinnitus? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because there's basically nowhere I can go that doesn't have some kind of like noise, because like even out here where I live in the middle of fucking nowhere, our electrics aren't great. Yeah, can't remember if that was mentioned in my like rural living is fucking shit for disabled creatives video, but like our electrics aren't great, so I feel like they do make more noise than most people's electrics anyway. But also like just being around electric appliances, I can hear that, and that is quite a common thing among neurodivergent people. And like, I don't know what tinnitus sounds like. It's not a thing that you can just experience. I feel like everybody has like their own like different interpretations as well and experiences of tinnitus. But yeah, that's a question that kept being asked of me, and I was like, I don't think so, but also I'm sensitive to really high pitches of noise, so is it tinnitus or is it just the fucking electric? And then yeah, anywhere like that is away from electrics and stuff is loud in other ways. Wind, transport, animals, bugs, you know? So I don't know, mate. If I have tinnitus, then it's probably bothering me less than most of the other shit I've got going on, you know? Bigger fish to fry, babe. An interesting thing I was asked when I actually got to the proper auditory processing assessment was asking if my ADHD meds had improved my hearing. No, which is fine, but like that was an interesting question to me. It's not really something that's not something I'd heard about. And I think like absolutely no judgment to people who aren't diagnosed with an auditory processing disorder, because like from my own experience of going for that diagnosis, it's not easy and it's not cheap. You can technically do it through the NHS, but again, the wait lists are really fucking long. What was my point? Oh yeah, so like there are a lot of things that obviously if you've not been professionally assessed, and there's not a whole lot of useful information out there really on diagnosis of it and stuff in the UK from like good sources, it can be difficult to find out accurate information. But I think partially because of that, because of the inaccessibility to being assessed, especially as an adult, like it's even worse than autism and ADHD. There's so much information that people just don't even know about or don't know is linked to an auditory processing disorder. Because yeah, there were definitely some things that came up that I was like, oh, I didn't realise that was also technically to do with an auditory processing disorder. Like I read out earlier, like reading as well. Luckily, again, the audiologist who did my like original hearing test was really helpful and actually found the information I needed to help me narrow down who I could or wanted to see in the UK to pursue an auditory processing diagnosis, because that was part of what I was sending around to these audiologists. Basically was like, hi, I need an updated hearing test because of this, because I'm so young. You either need a hearing test because you're going deaf or for other reasons. I feel like a lot of the times you have to justify it. So that's what I was saying to each of the different places, is like, my purpose for getting this hearing test is because the basics that I understand at the moment is I need this before I can go on to a more specialised assessment. So yeah, she was really helpful finding all those things, but for some reason we had issues with her like sending that stuff to me by email. It just wasn't coming through. I've no idea what the problem was, but eventually we got it all through. I was gonna say I recommend you ask, but honestly, there's not many places in the UK. It is mainly London. That is also the only location that works with the NHS. Yeah, I mean, if you're further away from London, definitely I would say still ask the audiologist if they can help, but honestly there was just not much. And if you're in Wales, Scotland or Ireland, there was basically nothing. It was dire. It's pretty bad. So yeah, I basically went to the only person that existed. I feel like London's easier to go to anyway versus Southampton for me. Like I don't know Southampton. I think it's further away as well to travel. You can also have the appointments with this doctor. Oh my god, I need to get her name out. Professor, technically. Okay, so she's French. I'm going to struggle to pronounce her name, I'm very sure. Bamu. I've typed in how do you pronounce this, and it basically just comes up with all the links to her work. That's the other thing for me as well. Like, I think that's a combination of ADHD and the auditory processing disorder, is I really struggle with people's names. Like, regardless of what your fucking name is. It could be Jack. I don't know who you are. John? Joseph? I don't know you. Bamu. Yeah, I don't know if I always keep it in. I definitely cut it out sometimes, but in some videos where I'm not always sure how to pronounce somebody's name, I'll do this and I'll still forget. And then I'll panic that I'm gonna say it wrong. So I tend to avoid using people's names quite a lot, which I don't like. I would like to use people's names, but a lot of the times I'm just terrified that I either just don't remember their name at all and just call them something else, which I've also done in a video a while back, called somebody the wrong name, didn't realise till afterwards. Or the other one is that I get like stage fright with pronouncing their name. Bamu. I'm gonna keep that fucking page open. Professor Bamu is the London-based one. You can have appointments with her virtually as well. So obviously the actual testing, you have to go in person to, I can't remember, like the hearing and balance clinic or some shit, and it's around sort of Oxford Street area. So if you're not disabled like me, you can go and do something afterwards. Well, I'll get to it. My initial consultation was online. It's basically just talking through, yeah, kind of like medical history again, as well as her asking some specific questions. So like, yeah, one of them was the ADHD medication. She was asking you why I was here, what it was that made me realise this is a struggle I have, when I sort of realised it, do I think I've had it like forever? So yeah, like obviously I was talking about my ADHD and autism assessments where I was like, oh yeah, actually I remember reading these things in my school reports, and that yeah, I do remember really struggling to do things in loud environments and I couldn't concentrate. And yeah, I did say like I can deal with fast speech only if it's like a recorded person, because a lot of the times people speak too slowly for me. I think I speak really slowly actually when I'm watching myself back. In my head I'm speaking a lot faster because my brain is talking in between me actually speaking. So when I'm editing I'm like, wow, this is so slow. But I mean, when my friends watch my videos and they've sped them up, they're like, it's really weird speeding you up because obviously we know you in person. And I'm like, I do not feel that way. Because I speed up most of my friends' voice notes. The only person I can't speed up is Evie, because she speaks too fucking fast. I have told her this, it's fine. I can listen to like most people, sped up on a recording because there's not the pressure of having to respond or having to like really take in what's been said. And if I feel like I have missed something, or I want to listen back again, or like, oh, actually maybe this is too fast, I can just rewind it and change the thing. You can't do that with people. Sorry, excuse me, I just need to rewind a second, and can you go a little bit slower? I mean, you could, but I'm already considered rude, so I do ask people who are speaking too fast to repeat themselves if I need them to. But yeah, the main challenge is more the people I don't know in public places, loud spaces, that sort of thing. I think the main reason why as well I wanted to go through this was because I find it really like anxiety inducing, really stressful trying to hear people and like communicate with people in public. And it's something I've been trying to tell Pip for years. They don't get it because it's not associated with anything. So that was another one of my motivators, was like for some people to actually take it more seriously, because it's not just the fact that I struggle to do this thing, it's the fact that because I struggle, I also get really stressed and anxious and frustrated and angry sometimes, depending on the context. It does make it really difficult to do a lot of things, mostly because people just really refuse to like just do some basic adaptions. People suck. She also asked me if I struggle with lyrics. I was like, hell yeah. I have no idea what people are singing 90% of the time. And like, I will say a lot of that is also the fact that a lot of singers, it's like kind of a stylistic choice of how they sing words, that a lot of the words just don't sound like how you would say them. It's kind of why a lot of people often sing in like American accents versus their own natural accents, as well, like especially generalized American accents, because the mouth shapes they make are better for producing the sound, not necessarily better for enunciating. Honestly, I basically rewrote some fucking lyrics, and my version's way better. I did an audition a little while ago and I used that song from that annoying YouTuber, Aria, because I really like that song, okay? She don't like boys anymore. I love that song because as a teenager, I would have gone fucking wild for that song. That song would have been me to a T. And there's one line in it that I rewrote. I didn't even know that I was wrong. I thought it was very clearly, I won't step on your toes when I take off your clothes. It is not. And whatever like the real version is, fucking sucks. It's shit. My version's better. I forgot to put this in my original list as well, which is strange, but like I also always watch, or like most of the time, watch TV and films with captions. Some things just don't have any, which is really annoying. And also cinemas have very, very few captioned viewings. If I want to go see a film at the cinema, it's really hard to find one with captions. So sometimes I'm just there like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just vibing. Like at the moment I'm watching, I think it's like it's a crime drama, but like most of the people on the island are Welsh and some of the accents are really strong. I'm like, I have no idea what you just said, babe. But also, same for some of the people who have accents more like mine. I'm like, you mumbled that whole line. You threw that whole line away. Where was the dictation? How now, brown cow, grazing in the green, green grass. Clearly not everybody had my great-grandmother. So yeah, I always, as much as I can, use captions for TV. Weirdly, I don't feel like I need them that often for things like YouTube videos and live streams. I don't know why that is. Questions that I don't have an answer to. And yeah, she asked me about like family history and I was like, well, nobody's diagnosed with shit. It's all me, babe. And I'm nearly 30. I'm nearly 30 and I'm the one with it all because I'm the one who's annoying. I'm the one that's fucking annoying about it. Tell me what's going on or I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. So like, yeah, I was like, nobody's diagnosed with anything, but like my whole mum's side of the family have a lot of neurodivergent traits that are very similar to mine. I don't know whether any of them would be classified as auditory processing disordered, but definitely other shit going on there. And yeah, no hearing loss except from with age in my family. This is going to be a bitch to read because it's a lot of language I've never come across before. It's very different medical sort of language. She said that based on what I was telling her, she thinks it's likely that I have some kind of auditory processing disorder and I would need some tests done. The cost of the tests varies depending on what test she thinks she like needs you to do. So they could cost like up to nearly £1,000. I think mine were about like a bit under 600 because I didn't need as many tests doing, I guess. The results were the transient evoked otoacoustic emissions suppression by contralateral noise was abnormally reduced on the right side, but normal on the left. There was definitely one of my tests that was only like just a little bit abnormal, but it's still abnormal, so it still qualifies as like auditory processing disordered problems. So that test is that they record the... No, that's a different test. Oh my god. Oh no, it is the test? I don't know, mate. Oh no, it is the same test. Okay. It was just slightly different phrased. Like, I don't know any of these words. It's hard to understand. I really don't understand anything about hearing or processing, honestly. So the otoacoustic emission suppression by contralateral noise test is where we record the ear's response to a sound while at the same time we give noise to the other ear. I have no idea what I just said. This test assesses a low brain pathway, medial olivoclear bundle that controls the ear's response when there is background noise that needs to be ignored. The pathway for this effect is the auditory nerve fibres arising from the ear. Interesting. It's a nerve thing? Huh. Sorry, my eyes are also just fucking crying and I don't know why. I think it's just because we're having another warm day, so maybe it's just allergies again. The auditory nerve fibres arising from the ear to the superior olivary complex, the SOC, in the brainstem, crossing the midline and going from the SOC to the opposite inner ear outer hair cells. Oh my god. This is what I mean. I have no fucking clue. I don't even remember what test that was supposed to be from this. The finding in this test is called the suppression or the suppression effect. It should be better than 1 decibel. If suppression is reduced or absent or abnormal, this indicates that this low brain pathway does not work well. Same. This abnormality has been found in patients of all ages who report problems when listening in background noise or heightened sensitivity to loud noises. That's the other thing. I'm sensitive to loud noise, like full stop. Any loud noise, hate it. Christ. Yeah, I don't remember what test that was supposed to be based on that. Then there's the speech in babble test, SIB, abnormal on the right ear. So again, my right ear dysfunctional there. That's what I find really interesting too. 2 of my test results were abnormal in the right ear and one of them, which wasn't these 2, was abnormal in this ear. Yeah, very weird. I don't know how that works. Speech and babble test is a test that requires the patient to repeat words that are presented in background competing babble type noises. Noise made by several people talking at the same time, but in which you can't tell the different words. I'm just absolutely talking shit. What does this mean? Anyway, moving on. Dichotic digits test, the DDT, was normal on the right ear, but slightly abnormal on my left ear. I do remember this one because I thought I did really well. I thought I did okay. I came up like, yeah, it was great until they said the number 10. Every time they said 10, I couldn't fucking remember it. So yeah, they would have headphones on and you would hear 2 numbers on this ear and 2 different numbers in this ear, and you had to speak all of them. And that's it. Like, I don't know what it was. I think a lot of my coping mechanisms are using like my visual memory, my visual brain, because I can visualize seeing the numbers in front of me. But I don't know what it was about the number fucking 10. I think it's because it's two numbers, like two digits, that my brain was like, nah, can't remember 5 5 numbers, thanks. Only 4 numbers. Because I remember struggling every time there was a 10, but otherwise I thought I did really well. I was like, oh, I'm actually really good at this. No. A left ear or right ear, fuck's sake. A left ear or right ear only abnormal score in this test indicates that there is a problem with dichotic listening, which can be due to an abnormal auditory system maturation. So my auditory processing system didn't mature properly, I guess. As the left ear score in this test depends on transfer of information from the right to the left part of the brain, which is the language part of the brain. What? I swear I've read all these, I do understand, but like reading the actual report is really hard. Like what? I have problems with sight reading. For one, just reading it aloud correctly, but also I don't really process or take in what I read aloud. I have to like pre-read things, because if you're expecting me to read like cold and like understand what I've said, or like a common example is auditions or acting or whatever, if I'm given like a script or a monologue and they want me to like actually act it, I can't, because I have no idea what's happening. I'm focused on saying the words right. I need to pre-read stuff because I won't process any of it. And I've already read this, but it's because the words are hard, I have no idea. I've not a clue, mate. So it's all to do with like the corpus callosum? I don't know, mate. Fuck off. Part of the brain is the last part of the brain to myelinate during development around the age of 12 years. Sometimes we find in this test a right ear abnormal score despite the fact that the child is right-handed. Oh, so I guess it's more likely to have like a particular side abnormality depending on what hand you can write with for this test. Interesting. Please note that for both children and adults who are right-handed, we find the right ear dominant, i.e. the right ear scores better than the left ear scores in this test. That was correct for me. But yeah, she basically said that I meet the criteria for an auditory processing disorder with deficits in auditory closure, dichotic listening, and suppression. Okay, so also like clarify in more like plain language terms. Auditory closure deficits is when a person can't fill in the gaps of speech when it is more challenging. This can happen in a quieter situation, but it's more common when the speaker's voice is too fast or is muffled, making it hard for the other person to make sense of the sounds and words. This is actually quite a useful little fact sheet. But again, it's all aimed at kids. Like, it's even worse than the autism and ADHD. Like, at least people are like making stuff for adults now, but they just aren't for auditory processing disorders. So that's one of the things I got going on. Dichotic listening, this is when it also says child, so I'm gonna just say it. This is when a child has trouble understanding competing, meaningful speech that happens at the same time. For example, if a teacher is talking on one side of the child and another student is talking on the other side, the child with APD cannot understand the speech of one or both of the speakers. Ooh, literally slay me. It doesn't have suppression on here. Google that one. I now can't actually find anything that says fuck all about it. Thanks. Right, let me copy and paste this bit. Try that one instead. No, I literally can't even find anything that explains that. Let me try and find test glossary. Let's have a look at the test glossary. The sound recorder tells us how well the hearing organ amplifies sounds. This is done with the so-called outer hair cells. So this was the nerve-related one. No, wrong one. Octoacoustic. What? Right, so the report says transient evoked otoacoustic emission suppression by contralateral noise. However, there is not something exactly in that phrasing in the glossary. It is either transient evoked otoacoustic emissions or otoacoustic emission suppression by contralateral noise. So I don't fucking know. I don't know. The tests themselves were actually really laborious. I was told I would probably be in there for about 2 hours, but I did sort of just plow through them and it was like an hour and a half. I don't remember all of them. A lot of them were very similar to just the standard hearing tests I'd already done. And also, to be honest, I think I'd done some of these tests as a kid, but again, I'd been kind of ignored. Like, my dyslexia was always ignored and considered borderline, even though I was like, basically could have been held back a year because of how bad my English grades were. Oh, the irony. The irony. I think one of the tests that I did have some issues with was the singular words, whilst there was overlapping speaking, was harder than the phrases of overlapping speaking, because with phrases, there's kind of like the context clues. A lot of the times I can hear the start and the end of a sentence and I lose the middle, or usually at least hear the start, and you can kind of fill in the gaps quite easily. But with singular words, there's no context because it's just one word. There were a few times where I was like, oh, I don't know, it could really be like 2 words and I don't know which one. Like, it very much could just be either of these words, but they only took my first answer, which I don't think is fair, because it's like, well, if I'm sat here telling you I could not tell you between these 2 words and you're just taking the first one I've said, that's not really my answer, is it? My answer is, I don't know. Because there was one where I was like, oh, I think it was either like boat or boast. And I was like, I just don't know. It literally could be either. And then there was one I was like, this is absolutely incorrect, but I don't know what else it would be. So I sort of laughed because I was like, it's definitely not this word. And I was saying that to the assessor. I was like, it's not this word, because I know you wouldn't have this word in a test. But I heard shit. Apparently it was cheer. I heard shit. I did struggle with the sentences one, because there were a lot of sentences that I was like, I definitely didn't hear those words. I definitely did not process those words. But based on context, I could go, oh, probably these words, right? And then as well, obviously, like, these were all just sounds in my ears, so couldn't compensate with lip reading at least. And like, I don't know, I used so much energy trying to listen that like I was making jokes about this for days, but through the like nearly like an hour and a half assessment, all of my neck and shoulders and stuff was tensed, as if that's gonna help me hear better. Like, excuse me? Are you well? No, I'm not well. I was just so tense for an hour and a half, and it got worse the longer I was in there just trying to listen. And yeah, I was tired. I also forgot to take my ADHD, like, second ADHD pill, because it was like, I was due to take it like half an hour into my assessment. Forgot. The last test was literally just stay as still and as quiet as possible, because this is just bouncing noise around the inside of your ears to see how your ears work. I don't know. I didn't have to do anything, but I did have to be still, so I was like, help me. And there was a weird one that was just like, all you could hear was static, but there would be pauses in the static and you had to count them. And she explained to me how it worked, but obviously I'd forgotten one of the earlier parts of that, because in one of the practices I said, oh, 4. And she went, there's only a maximum of 3. I was like, oh, I don't remember you saying that, so I thought I heard 4. I wasn't. This is the other thing that pisses me off, right? Nothing to do with this lady assessing me or like this place in particular. It's kind of something that everywhere does, and I'm like, that makes no sense as an instruction. Don't guess. I'm probably just being really autistic about it. I know I am, but it really annoys me because I'm like, okay, but if I don't know the answer and I think it's this, is that not technically a fucking guess? So it was really annoying because I was like, well, I heard 3, or like I heard 4. I heard 4 that time. I'm pretty sure I heard 4 breaks in the static. I wasn't guessing, I was telling you what I heard. It was wrong. Doesn't mean I was guessing, but yeah, like, that really annoyed me, this like idea of don't guess. I'm like, all answers are guesses. Especially in this context. I don't know if I have an auditory processing disorder or not, and if I do, then that means a lot of my answers are wrong. It's all a guess. I'm just doing my best. Write a poem about that. It's all a guess. I'm doing my best. I really ain't blessed with good hearing. I was exhausted, but also because I've been having a lot of this lower back pain. I was sat in a chair for that like a really long time, obviously sat down for all the travel. I was like, yeah, I don't really want to just go straight home and sit on all the trains, so we had to walk around afterwards. I then got into such a horrific mood, partly probably because I missed that ADHD med, partly because I was in so much pain. That was also like a few days after I thought I broke my toe, so I'd done a lot of moving around and my foot really fucking hurt. That was the point where I literally couldn't wear any shoes, so even though I was walking around in my Nikes, it was really painful. So yeah, we came home and I think I had my like final consultation, whatever, report thing the next week, which was also virtual. And yeah, she did kind of just talk through it all, so that's why I do know the gist of it. It's just that the actual language of the report is really difficult. I think one of the most useful things she provided though is this, basically like a handout that I can send or give to people to read and basically understand the gist of what I struggle with when it comes to auditory processing issues. It's basically a very simple list. I might save it and highlight the bits that are relevant to me, but yeah, the list is: people with auditory processing problems seem to hear inconsistently. If they seem to hear some things and not others, do not assume they are purposefully ignoring you, which I think was also a thing that happened a lot to me as a child, is that people thought I was ignoring them and I wasn't. I just didn't notice they were talking to me. You'll have greater success in communicating if there are not other activities like other people talking or laughing, television or radio playing, dishwasher or vacuum cleaner running, etc. Just background noise competing with you talking. During communication, provide a quiet setting. Go into a quiet room, turn off the TV, ask others to be quiet for a moment, etc. Delay important conversations until a quiet time can be found. Make a point of finding quiet conversation periods on a regular basis during the course of each day. Simplify your language level if the person you're talking to does not seem to understand. I mean, like, I think that's something everyone should be doing. Like, why are you using academic fancy floppy language all the time when like most people really struggle with a lot of that stuff and do not have access to education or the ability to self-teach sometimes. Try slowing down your rate of speech if they continue to have trouble understanding. One way to accomplish this is to pause between utterances, especially after they have finished talking and before you respond. If you need to repeat something, try saying it in a different way, so with different words or different type of sentences. Do not try to have discussions when you are both in separate rooms. What? Calling my mum out here a lot. She has the same problem, but she still does the same shit that she tells other people off for. I love her. I'm like lovingly taking the piss out of her for doing this, but this is the living room. If you're in here, even though it's quite open plan, if somebody's in the fucking kitchen, even though it's like just like, so we've got a dining table over there and then behind this wall is the kitchen. So like, even though it's not like technically that far, obviously there's like a wall in the way and like your face is nowhere near anybody and everyone always fucking mumbles. Even though they're like talking to you from a different room, they're still mumbling. Or like someone starts saying something to you and then they put the fucking kettle on. Like, you can't hear people in the kitchen from here, whether it's quiet in the kitchen or not. And then like even further down that way is like the fridge and freezer, and that's even worse. But people like I said, my mum still does it, but other people do it as well. And literally my response these days is, I can't hear you, you're in the kitchen. Because my mum has the same fucking problem. I'm sure she has an auditory processing disorder, to be honest, because we both have literally the same issues, basically. Sometimes I do it out of like absent-mindedness. I literally have done it so many times when I'm recording a voice note to my friends. I'm like, blah, 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 in the kitchen fanning about, and then I turn the fucking kettle on. I'm like, right, I've just started this fucking voice note and I've just turned the kettle on. Anyway, I'm gonna move away from the bloody fucking kettle, you know, or turning the dishwasher on, or just putting the washing machine on, or the microwave or the oven, and all the beeping noises, you know, like all the different kinds of like, particularly like kitchen appliances that make some kind of noise. Usually though, it's somebody else. Like if I'm with my mum in the kitchen talking about something, somebody else will come in and be doing something loud in the kitchen, you know, like, you know, loading or unloading the dishwasher, making a cup of tea. I'm just like, I can't hear shit, mate, because everybody's busy doing shit right here. What did you say? I think the main thing with that as well is that it literally does take so much energy to listen to people, or try to listen to people through all that noise. A lot of things that happen with my mum as well is that she'll be saying something to me. I don't always need to look at somebody to know what they're saying, particularly friends and family, and because I'm autistic I don't really like looking at people anyway. Mid-sentence my mum will like turn around and start leaving the room, and I'm like, I have no idea what the rest of that sentence or story was now. Or the reverse, where they start talking to me in like a mumble from a different room and I only hear the second half. I'm like, can you start again? What did you say? It just makes me angry. It's not something that many people really think about. So like, I'm not that angry at the people directly really. I'm just pissed off that this is always a problem. Always a problem. When conversing, allow adequate time for a response. Yeah, because I take long pauses to be like, beep boop beep boop beep beep boop boop beep, whilst I'm like processing what, if I even understood what someone said to me. Young people may need time to recover after. Young people may need time to recover after school or college. I would say adults too, after work. Fuck off. Allow time for relaxation before asking them to do chores or study. She didn't even mention this. I didn't know. That's my genuine reaction to finding that out. I've not read this handbook yet. Wow. Yeah, it's absolutely me. With young people, praise any accomplishment, academic or otherwise, that represents even small improvements over previous levels. It is not helpful to compare their performance to other people. Yeah, hello, all of the schools I went to. Earplugs may be useful. And it says in the car. I would just say generally. She did have specific suggestions for me as well anyway, but like this is just a general handbook for anyone in an auditory processor's disorders life. Obviously especially helpful for like work or school or things like that. If disciplining a child, I mean, fair enough. If disciplining a child, be sure to indicate what specific behaviour is being punished and why. Do not punish behaviour the child cannot help. Set enforceable and realistic rules. When reprimanding, choose a time when you have your child's attention. Make sure they know exactly why they are being reprimanded. Also, do this in private if possible. I mean, like, that's just like decent parenting. Like, don't be an asshole to your child. Get attention first by addressing the listener by name or touching them. Careful with the touching them though. Like, have that discussion first. Don't fucking touch me. There are other ways you can get someone's attention. I think this is something I see a lot of like deaf people saying. It's like, don't fucking touch me to get my attention. Like there are other ways to get somebody's attention, whether they are deaf or have an auditory processing disorder. It doesn't always have to be touching them. But yeah, there are a lot of really simple or like quite inventive ways that do not involve touching somebody. So yeah, don't touch me. I don't like being touched. If giving instructions to a child, get them to repeat the instructions back, thus allowing you to monitor where a message may have broken down and then repeat the parts missed. Do not ask, did you hear me, but ask specific questions about the instructions. I do agree with that though. Getting into a routine as a family may help anticipate speech content and thus improve communication. If I have ADHD, I have ADHD! It's a struggle. Multiple part instructions should be given one part at a time with a slight pause, long enough to repeat mentally each part of the instruction back to yourself in between the parts to allow the listener time to receive the message and comprehend each part. Yeah, fair. Some people with auditory processing disorders have a strong ear, so try to speak on the side of the strong ear. I don't think I have a strong ear. It may be difficult for people with auditory processing disorders to follow conversations at the dinner table, but try to involve them. Yeah, I really hate going out for meals, having meals with people. It may be useful when giving instructions to a child to write them on a pinboard or whiteboard, or also to an adult. Please write down the instructions you're also saying to me. Is that an auditory processing disorder thing then? Interesting. Yeah, because I say to people that I don't really take on instructions well if they are just written or just spoken. They need to be both. I think a little bit of autism is in there too, but like, yeah, interesting. Visual cues should be used as often as possible to supplement verbal communication. Oh, such a slay. Yes, don't talk to me. Just show me a nice little photograph or an image. So yeah, that's basically just the little handbook, which I think is like fair enough. It's quite simple. I obviously don't have a link for that, so I can't link that in the description, unfortunately. But it is something that I will be sending to like my friends and stuff, my mum, because I think she'll benefit from having that to give to her supervisor at work. I do struggle with captions on live content though, because they're usually delayed. That's when I really struggle with captions on TV as well, if they're like out of sync. So I don't know if that's an auditory processing disorder thing as well, but like, yeah, I can't have the sound turning up at a different time to the written version of the speech. But yeah, that was basically the whole thing. I was glad to just kind of find that stuff out. I was given some direct personal recommendations of what I could do or what I could possibly access. I don't know a whole lot about auditory processing disorders in general, so there may be a few things I've said here that aren't correct, but this is, yeah, I mean, I guess this is the start of me learning more about them. Oh, that's the thing I was gonna say. Okay, so it's not in my report, but what Professor Barmew said to me in our last consultation or whatever is that the type of auditory processing disorder that I showed to have is really common in autistic people. I said that I knew that auditory processing disorders seem to be quite common in people with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, things like that. Not necessarily that, you know, you will have an auditory processing disorder if you are one of those neurodivergent labels. Some people do not have an auditory processing disorder and are autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, whatever. But yeah, it was just quite funny that the specific kind of auditory processing disorder that I am shown to have is really common in autistic people. There were some really annoying things I did read though, that, you know, if you're like high support needs, autistic, or have certain types of learning disabilities, a lot of places will not even assess you. So that is something to keep in mind. I don't know why. That doesn't really make any sense to me. If it's more common or like relatively like common to have an auditory processing disorder, if you've got one of these diagnoses, it shouldn't matter what level you are.
I have also been trying to do at least a little bit of Google research into auditory processing disorders. Like I said, a lot of stuff that comes up is mainly for kids, but there is some other stuff out there. And one thing I did come across is that apparently auditory processing disorders could possibly be related to having had a lot of ear infections as a child, which was really interesting to me because I have heard, and I'm pretty sure I've read it in a few research studies and stuff too, that like autistic children are more prone to having quite a lot of ear infections, and that was absolutely me. I had ear infections almost constantly, and I still struggle occasionally with ear infections. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it can be possible to acquire an auditory processing disorder in a number of ways, and one of them is like ear infections or damage to the ear. Yeah, if something might have damaged that connection of translation, then you could have an auditory processing disorder now.
I would say if you've got ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and relate to some of the things that I've said or any of the things I've said, it's definitely worth looking into. You can get a GP to refer you to Professor Barmew, but like I said, she is based in London, but she does do the sort of just chatting consultations online if that's easier. So that did at least cut down the travel pain in the ass for 2 out of 3 appointments. I have always found it really difficult to just like do stuff with other noise going on, particularly anything that involved the expectation of me to be participating and responding, and it has always been something that's been like just a frustration, just trying to get anything done, because like people don't really get it, even if they also have the same experience, they just don't really get it. Definitely not something that I feel is talked about much in most spaces, even though a lot of people I know probably have an auditory processing disorder. And obviously as well, it does make communicating with different kinds of disabilities difficult as well. I worded that really weirdly, I'm really sorry. Different disabilities, different disabled people. So like, yeah, for example, my auditory processing disorder does conflict with deaf people. I think as long as you turn up to a conversation with like an open mind and an ability to be open about communication, and the other person is the same, then it's not so bad. But it's hard to find that, because yeah, I think for me, like, communicating with any of the deaf people I know in some ways is easier than communicating with people who aren't deaf or don't have an auditory processing disorder, because we both have like kind of hearing related needs, right? And in a lot of ways they're quite similar, that sometimes we need people to repeat what they've said, say it a bit more slowly, or maybe louder, or like enunciate better, face us so we can lip read, you know, things like that. Anyway, this has been a really long video again because I can't stop fucking yapping, and this was so confusing to try and read. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Oh, I just hurt my toe. Ha! Let me know if there's anything that you found helpful, or if you've been diagnosed and what that process was like for you. If anyone's been through the NHS route, let us know, because God, that's probably shit. The strongest of soldiers. And yeah, like I said, I'll probably start looking more into auditory processing disorders generally to learn a bit more. And maybe I can make a follow-up video in the future, either about the suggestions I've been given, or just more things I've learned, like other ways it can present itself and be difficult. But yeah, let me know. Leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, share my videos, yeah, support the channel. You might know someone who would benefit from this video. I will include as many useful and helpful resources and links in the description down below. And yeah, that's it. I want to go lay down and eat, to be honest. It's also time for my second ADHD med, so timed that really well. So yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye.